This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, as always, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz? Looking forward to another great broadcast, baby. Episode 369 about to commence. I'm really excited.
You know what? I'm excited too, because without having any preseason football and without having college football to look forward to, I've kind of felt like I've been in no man's land, just kind of wandering the landscape of sports aimlessly. I know we have baseball and I'm enjoying that. I know we've got hockey and I know we've got basketball. It's weird having all these things going on right now, especially with all their postseasons taking place right now. But without football, I feel like I am directionless. And we have a fantasy football draft coming up for our family in a little bit. And I was like, man, I don't even know if we're going to have this year. I had to make sure everybody still wanted to do it. I've got another one going on this weekend. And I just kind of feel like I'm not hyped for football. And I think it's just because I haven't had my appetizer of preseason football. So I'm excited that on this podcast today, we get to talk a ton of football.
Yeah, when college football, a sport that you and I love because we love breaking down Michigan State, the rivalry, it would have been a year where Mel Tucker was going to come in and establish his mark, his first go-around with Jim Harbaugh, and you just get the sense that it kind of, when the announcement was made, it took the wind out of the sails of a lot of people, and then this weird notion that another conference could play, but the Big Ten won't, so you feel like you're left out. And then I think the other part, too, is that, yes, the NFL is pushing ahead, but there's this kind of dark cloud that's just kind of hanging over sports that at any moment, one athlete could jeopardize an entire team. Just one. Think about it. One guy that decides, I want to go out and have a good time and bring somebody home. I'm kind of in the mood for some world-famous soup down at 8 Mile, and I want to go and hang out. One guy could bring down an entire team. Now, they'll still continue. They'll still power ahead. But if a rash of COVID hits the NFL, it's going to be unbelievably like a shit show to see how they handle it, who's going to be brought up, things like that. So right now it's been smooth sailing, but we're ever so close to inching towards some rough and choppy waters. But that's just the way it is, and it's just an interesting time. But I know we're going to talk football, but we would be remiss if we didn't talk about, I guess, the trendsetters of the Detroit Lions. It was really weird because in the coverage of the Lions, I'm now going to get a chance to go out to training camp today. The day that you guys are hearing this broadcast, I'm going to be out at Allen Park, and I'm going to have my binoculars, and I'm going to start peeking at what's going on with these 2020 Detroit Lions. The first couple weeks, I was in the back of the line, which is fine based on my experience. I still get a ticket, but I'm at the back of the line, it's not a problem. Look, I said my piece to whoever I had to say it to, and I'm still getting in. I'm going to enjoy Thursday, Friday, getting out there and seeing what's going on with the Lions. But on Tuesday, it was like a weird experience because we have a schedule that's sent to us like on Sunday for the whole week, which is perfect for me because I can plan around it with broadcasting, podcasting, and the schedule with other things that I do. So the first media session usually is going to be around like 9:40. All of a sudden, 10:05 hits, we get an update. It's going to be delayed. And then 10:10 hits, and it's delayed further. And I'm like, what is going on here? And then 11 a.m. hits. We're not getting an update. You're starting to get word that practice is delayed. And what's going on? And I'm like, I'm trying to peek in and see what's going on. And all of a sudden, me and the wife are like, I wonder if something bad happened. And it's like, well, did something happen to Patricia? I'm like, well, I wonder if something happened to Martha Ford. Something happened. What's going on? And then you start getting whispers that practice was officially canceled. And you're like, what on earth would make anybody want to cancel practice? And you got word that the players were highly, highly upset at what happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin with the shooting that took place. And the players decided after a long talk that Tuesday just wasn't a day that they were interested in football. And they took a stand and they made their point known. And when I got word of that, I was like, okay, you know what? To play football, to go into work, you got to kind of be up for it. And if it's a day where the morning is spent talking about things like that are a little bit more important than football, and Patricia gave them an hour to kind of think more about it, and they decided, look, we're not into it, And, I respect Patricia for his decision to cancel practice. Now, it's gotten, as we record, now the NBA stepped up and canceled games, which is something I never thought, to be honest, cuz I have no problem with players speaking their mind. I will agree or disagree with their point in the manner in which they do it, but I never begrudge anybody for making a point. To actually now have what happened with that shooting in Wisconsin reverberate all across sports where games are being canceled. Honestly, I'm shocked. I never thought that we would sit here and say that a professional scheduled event that was scheduled to go down on Wednesday, 3 playoff games, I never thought that players would say, you know what, it's not worth it. Never, never, never.
I never thought it would happen either. And look, I think it's commendable what they're doing. Right. And I think it's awesome that as a group, they are standing up for what they believe in and they are doing what they feel is necessary to bring more light to this unfortunate incident. Like it's absolutely brutal. And there's nothing you can really say to justify any of this. But my question for you is, in the long term and in the long run, does it really do anything? By NBA players not playing their basketball game today, does it really do anything? Because I would argue that they're not part of legislation. They're not part of any type of task force that would sit there and make rules or put anything in place to modify these types of actions or help prevent these types of actions. They're entertainers. That's what athletes are. They're high-priced, highly paid, extremely athletic and gifted entertainers. And them protesting, I think, is fantastic because, and especially showing a unified front across the entire NBA. In this case, the Lions doing it on Tuesday. So, I think it's fantastic. But in the long run, does it really impact any laws? Does it really have a social impact? Because I don't know if it does. And I'm just asking the question.
Yeah.
I just don't know if it does. I don't necessarily think it does. I think what happens is it forces guys like you and me to have this conversation. I think it forces us to talk about it, which is great. And we reach people through our platform and they're reaching people through their platform. So it is, I guess, furthering the discussion. But in the long run, does it really impact day in, day out life? Because I don't know if it does. Because we had, 3 months ago, we had George Floyd, right? George Floyd was the name that everybody rallied around. And now we've got this incident that took place in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And, James Blake is now the name that everybody's rallying around. I just don't know. I mean, what's changed in 3 months?
Yeah,
I don't think a whole lot has.
Yeah. Jacob Blake. Now,
Jacob Blake. I'm sorry, Jacob Blake.
Ryan Field just tweeted out the Bucks released a statement, and here's what it said: "We fully support our players and the decision they made. Although we did not know beforehand, we would have wholeheartedly agreed with them. The only way to bring about change is to shine a light on the racial injustices that are happening in front of us. Our players have done that, and we will continue to stand alongside them and demand accountability and change." So, look, at first, 4 years ago when Kaepernick started this, it got the ball rolling. But at first, people were highly against it. As the years have progressed and more of these shootings have been publicized, more and more athletes have been more outspoken. Now it's escalated because people are saying, no, we're not just going to talk. We got to take action. And the question you ask is very valid. At this point in time, all the work that has been done has only been really to raise awareness. The next step, like you're starting to see, is Matthew Stafford donating a huge amount of money to his alma mater and for social justice programs. The next step has to be increased dialogue between these teams and the police. You got to have, you know what, you guys are out now in the public eye. You got to go out there and you got to stand with police and discuss these issues openly so that people can see, look, yes, we have this issue with this certain group of people, but we're going to go to them and support them for the tough job that they have, but we also got to discuss some of the challenges, and you got to have open dialogue and civil discourse, which is really tough because even at the point when I discovered what happened, our poll was 60-40 in the negative. People did not want to read that in our coverage, and that's just point blank. Still with a practice that was canceled, people wanted to read more about Quintez Cephas. They wanted to read about the 2020 season preview that we did. People don't want to click on stories that talk about these things in large numbers. That's just a fact. And so what has to happen to take action is now the next step is some dialogue and some more advocacy for the things that are taking place. But now here's the point that I think is going to be discussed when the NBA returns. Their ratings were down. Their numbers were pretty much in the tank. And what's going to be the reaction now that they've actually went and canceled games? People were excited to get home from work and to watch some NBA action, or some of the games that were scheduled were during some people's work time. People wanted to maybe peek in and see what's going to be the reaction, because in the end, it's going to be the viewership, it's going to be the masses that determine this. And the NBA also has to take a critical look at when you go down this road of looking at social injustices. You also then have to go, okay, NBA, no problem. You want to go down this road? How come when there was $1 billion entity in the country of China that, kind of has some human rights violations, when some people started to bring about some noise that, hey, why are you guys taking so much money from China and they don't really treat their people all that well? They're like, oh, no, we want to change the subject. So you can't half-ass it, and that's the problem, is that there's a certain portion of this that appears to be hypocritical in that, yes, if we're going to talk about racial issues, we'll talk about it. But if we want to talk about human rights and where our dollars are coming from, we got to shut that shit down. We can't talk about it. So that turns people off, in that if you're going to go down this road, you got to be accurate, you got to be fair, and you can't just focus in on one issue. If you're going to be in the game of social justice, it can't just be about one topic. And so right now, the NBA is staring right now at what's going to happen. And I don't know. I don't know how this is going to take place. It could be full support. It could be further dialogue. But it's being talked about. But now, I've always preached family and education. Focus on things that you can control. Focus on mental health. Focus on having positive interactions and things like that. But right now, we got to have this discourse regarding race relations and how this is going to play out. But I think that more dialogue is taking place. People are engaged in this process. People are aware of it. Now, your point is exactly true. What action needs to take place? And this is what our country's great at. Our country's great at dialogue, but we're not great at action. And the problem is that when you look at bureaucracies, when you got one side that does one thing and the other side that does another, no matter what, it's hard. So if you're looking for the government to solve this, keep looking, because it's not going to get fixed. If we want to be a civil society, then we got to just take it upon ourselves to just be part of the solution. And that's all I'm doing, is that I'm open-minded. I have friends of all different creeds, colors. I joke with all of them. I'm sarcastic with each and every one of them. Every one of them's gotten my funny memes, and I'm just going to be part of the solution. That's all I can do. Can't worry, and that's what I tell my clients, is you can't worry about what you can't control. So I focus only exclusively on what I can control, who I talk to, who I interact with, and when I'm out there, you're going to laugh, and you're going to be like, dude, that guy's crazy, or he's crazy funny. And that's just how I'm going to conduct myself, and that's how it's going to be. But in the world of sports, you have to worry about the business side, and I wonder what the consumers are going to think. I wonder if the NBA is going to face some heavy, heavy backlash for their actions.
I don't think they should, but look, obviously that is...
It's happening.
It is, yeah. It's in this ultra high-pressured, hot-button political world that we live in now. Like everything that you and I say right now, somebody could take it and they'll twist it and put a political slant on it when there really is no political slant here.
We haven't told you our
talking.
side. Yeah, we're just chatting. We haven't told you our side. You don't know what side we're on. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's a mess right now. And
it is.
It's one of those things where obviously something has to be done.
Yes.
And I think we all agree. But I'm not 100% sure how not playing a basketball game fixes the issue. And I get that it's helping to further a conversation. I totally understand that. But we're past that point. Furthering the conversation was great 3 months ago.
Yeah.
We're here now. Like you have to do something else. Something else has to get done. And I don't know what that is. I don't have that answer. And I don't necessarily have that platform. We have a pretty awesome platform, and I think we use it for the most part for the best way we can. But I don't know what can be done to help escalate this situation and help move it forward. I don't think not playing a basketball game or not playing a baseball game or not playing a hockey game or not showing up for work or not showing up for something is the right answer. I don't think that is what's going to fix it. I'm kind of at a loss as to how we get it away from where we're at and how we get it to where it's right. And I understand that people don't want to hear it. And I understand people don't want to talk about it because it makes everybody uncomfortable. Because what happens is you bring this up and then you got to sit there and you got to look at yourself. And you know this as a psychologist, self-reflection is probably one of the hardest things that people have a problem with. It is incredibly difficult to do, to look at yourself and say, hey, why do I feel this way? Or, hey, why do I think this way? Or, hey, why is it always somebody else's problem and not my problem? You know, it's self-reflection is an MFer for sure.
Now, please don't, take this with the spirit in which it's intended, because here on our podcast, we just share what comes into our heads. And so I sit back, and after a long day of work, I'm too tired to get riled up. You know what I mean? I'm drinking a couple beers, couple Trulies. I'm like, honey, which one did you save for me? She's like, I saved this one. All right, good. I kick my feet up. My ass is tired. You know what I mean?
I want you to be drinking Trulies at the fantasy draft.
Exactly. No, I'll drink the beer because I'm not doing that publicly. Are you kidding? That's with the wife. Are you? One with you. Me and you will drink Truly. And
me and you, okay.
Oh my God. So you see what I'm saying? And I'm like, man, I'm tired. I'm working 2 jobs and I'm tired. I got kids. So I'm like, I'm too tired to ramp up for anything else. I just want to go to bed. And so I was thinking, I'm like, man, with all this reefer that's available in the United States, I thought the country would be more chill. I thought that, my business in the psychology practice would slow down. Dude, the business is like doubled. People are anxious. People are riled up. People are angry. People are frustrated. People are not happy. And it was funny, if you follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast, I retweeted a tweet from Chad Johnson where he's like, dude, if you follow the right accounts on Twitter, you'll be happy the rest of your life. And I feel like I do, because I go on Twitter every day in my research for sports and I laugh at all the memes. I laugh at all the reactions. I laugh at everything. And I just think we need a little bit of a breather in the world, just like a moratorium, like 1 week of happiness. Everybody, just take a week, smoke some reefer, get into your chill pajamas, walk barefoot all over the place. Let's chill out for 1 week and reset, because in my mind, everybody's so heightened, so emotional about these serious times. I just think we need a break. We need a collective American vacation where we all just have like this huge country block party, just relax a little bit. Let's not worry about the ills of the world. We give ourselves 7 days to just relax, have a little bit of fun, do what we got to do, text what we got to text, and then we got to start tackling some significant issues. But I just think that everybody's way, way heightened in their emotions. And emotions, when you start making decisions, get cloudy. They get messy. You start doing and saying things that you're not supposed to do. So I just think that we need to all relax. And I'm just really shocked at the heightened state of everyone's anxiety. And I'm not in that state. I'm happy. I'm doing what I'm like to do. I talk to whoever I like to talk to. I'm making things happen in the manner in which I do. And I just go, you got to have, you got to start with good mental health, physical health. You got to start with having a good social network of people that you talk to, and just start with the basics: family and education, being happy, searching for things that bring you light. And me personally, and if this doesn't apply to you, that's fine. Me personally, what gives me serenity is I'm a deeply faithful person. And I preach this to my clients, and this is things that I've told to every single person I've talked to. If you just look at it philosophically, on a philosophical level, can you have faith and worry at the exact same time? Philosophically, you can't. So whenever your mind starts to get to worrying and your thoughts start racing, I take a deep breath. I say, God, get my ass out of this house today and get me out quick, because this wife's going to kill me. And he's like, all right, yes, boom, boom. A phone call comes and I got an 8 o'clock client in the morning. I'm like, oh, thank you, God. And you know what I mean? I have faith. And I think that as we move away from that as a country, people are way out of whack in their worry about things. And we got to get back to finding things that bring people chill. And I thought weed was going to do it. I'm like, we're going to have like some utopian society. And it hasn't come. I think it's made people more anxious. So that's where we're at. But I'm surprised at where we're at as a country with this heightened sense of awareness of everything and people's tense outlook on things.
So everybody needs to get a CBD treat and just kind of hang out for a little bit.
They put it in your cookies, right? They put it in your brownies. They put it in your pizza. I mean, there's like, you're driving down the road, you're like 8 Mile Emporium. There's a big, huge reefer sign. I'm like, why isn't everybody happy? What's the deal? Nobody can laugh anymore? Doesn't anybody not turn on Netflix and laugh? I mean, I sit and laugh with you for half an hour a week, and then we bullshit and then complain, and we go about our business. But I think that people just got to find in their lives a certain sense of serenity, and I know a lot of people get it through sports, but sometimes, maybe some issues are bigger than sports, but I just think that collectively, when these tough times happen or tough things happen, we got to just let some time, let it breathe a little bit, and let's figure out how we're going to collectively figure out what's next. And I think that's good. I think that's the next step. You brought up really the best point that we could bring up is what's next? What are we going to do? And hopefully some form of leadership will take shape, and the awareness that was brought up can help people move forward. But I do want to discuss the Detroit Lions because...
You know what? Hold on one second. Yep. Real quick, before we move on to that. So just so everybody's aware, we don't think it's a laughing matter. Let's just get that out of the way right away.
Of course not.
I think the big issue with trying to get everything fixed and trying to connect the dots and come about that actual change and that reform is with leadership. It's with leadership at all levels, not just here at a city level, not just at a state level, not just at a federal level. I think it's leadership at all levels. And I think there's a disconnect because you have basically people and you have parties with an agenda pushing for their own things and not for what is best for everybody. And I think that's where we get into a little bit of this infighting. And I think this is where we get into everybody kind of taking things and putting a political spin on it and making it a hot button issue when really and truly, when you boil it down, it doesn't need to be all that. So I think leadership is a huge issue with a lot of things. Now let's just kind of move on to the Lions because I just want to talk football.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and if you're finding yourself having a hard time talking about things, feel free, message at Detroit Podcast. We'll definitely be a beacon of hope and light. And if you're hard up for money, just hit up Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. I hear he's going to start, giving away some of his money. I know he's put some into golf clubs and things like that, but I know he now wants to maybe start giving some money away to charity.
You're the worst.
I think that would be great. I think.
Hey, I got this $1,000 medical bill sitting on my desk right now. I'm stressing about how I'm going to pay that. Come on now.
Don't
give me a break.
Don't just go golfing. Just make them send you a couple letters. Worry about it in 2 months. we'll get back to it. We'll get back to it in 2 months. Just put it off. See what happens. Maybe they'll forget.
I hope they forget. I hope somehow it gets lost in the ether. It'd be great.
Yeah. Well, on Wednesday, the Lions did return to practice, and the weather made it a little bit of a sloppy practice. Kind of the reports Wednesday were a little bit of sloppy play. Even Matthew Stafford had to run a lap because he fumbled a snap. So it's kind of in that kind of dog days of training camp where we're figuring stuff out. But a couple of things have arisen that really have caught our attention, and one, obviously, is the fact that we lost a rookie. The Lions, Ja'Shawn Cornell, out with an Achilles injury. He's out for the year. And, it's a 7th-round pick, but he had an opportunity to potentially get in the mix on the defensive line. Could have been a force because that defensive line needed it. So you and I started to take a look, and people were like, oh, you know what? Back in 2011, and Matt Patricia's highlighted this in certain talks when he's been asked about, well, how are you going to take care of your players? And they're definitely doing load management. Certain players on their roster have been in and out of the lineup, in and out of practice in things. And back in 2011, when the NFL had a lockout, basically the year prior, there were only like a small handful amount of ACL injuries. Within the first 3 weeks of the season, I think I sent you the report that a dozen players, between 10 and 15 players, went out the first couple weeks of the season with ACL injuries. Soft tissue injuries could potentially be a factor. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Because of the fact that, the training was different. The athletes did not have as much access to the Allen Park practice facility as they would have. But in Cornell's situation, it was a freak thing. He misplanted and it caused the Achilles injury. And I'm a little bit concerned that, it might not be Corona at first that keeps players out. It might be injuries. And early on, you hear a little bit. I just think that with DeAndre Swift and some of the players you heard, I think you got kind of overly cautious situations where, a couple hamstrings, couple little bit of strains here and there, and they just took their time. But I'm not as concerned about coronavirus. Right now, I'm concerned more about soft tissue injuries as the season is approaching.
And I think that's a realistic concern, really and truly. You sent me the article, and then I was doing some digging as well before you sent the article to me, and it really backed up what I found. And that year, so 2011, if you go back and you look at how many guys went down early in that season, that year you had Jamal Charles blow out his ACL, like blew out his entire knee against the Detroit Lions. I think it was the first or second week of the season. Adrian Peterson also went down with a blown out knee. Guys all over the place ended up blowing out knees and blowing out ACLs or blowing out Achilles. It was crazy how many lower body injuries there were. And look, this is something that happens generally when the season starts and you don't get to have your proper warm-up or your proper conditioning. You usually see guys with all kinds of lower body injuries. So I think when the season starts, you're going to have a lot of hamstring injuries. You're going to have a lot of knee injuries. You're going to have some knee sprains. Hopefully you don't have any ACL injuries or Achilles injuries, because Achilles injuries are absolutely brutal. But I think this is a real concern. I think the number one and number two priorities for these teams as the season starts to really ramp up and when they go to utilize their players is they have to be concerned about the soft tissue injuries and, of course, the coronavirus. So I think for coaches and for staffs and for training staffs, you've got to be aware of getting good stretching in prior to games. You got to be able to condition these guys' bodies because, look, they're not really hitting out there. Most of these practices are taking place with teams in separate parts of the field, and they're trying to do their best to keep everybody quarantined from each other, and they're not really allowing you to prepare your body for the blows that it's about to take. So it's going to be really weird. I think we're going to have a lot of really sloppy football for probably the first 4 weeks when the season gets underway, just because guys aren't used to getting hit, and if you look at the Detroit Lions, I think a guy like Matt Stafford coming off of back-to-back back injuries, you got to be concerned because there's a good possibility you're going to have two rookie guards trying to protect your $1 million quarterback. And how's that going to work out for a guy who has proven and shown that his back, I don't want to say it's brittle, but man, he's had two really bad injuries in his back. I mean, he's strong as hell, right? Like, he is a fierce competitor. This guy played an entire season with a fractured back. How does that work out? You have to be concerned. On top of that, what about bringing in a guy like DeAndre Swift, who is already dealing with a little bit of an injury with his foot? So you got to start to be concerned about these things, and you got to worry about this. This is a big deal, and I think it's going to impact the first couple weeks of the season.
Yeah, it's something to pay attention to, most certainly. Make sure you stay tuned to @Detroit Podcast, @SI All Lions, to get your training camp updates as they move through. You're starting to kind of get a sense a little bit of how the offensive line is looking. You're starting to get a sense of, and I'm curious because, people are definitely into the rotations. And it's funny because people formulate their opinions and then they hear Matt Patricia talk and then they basically just disregard what the man says. If you listen to him and you parse through the 1,000 words that he gives, he typically gives you what you need to know. And yeah, some of it's obviously hidden and things like that, but people freaked out when if you read, oh my God, Tracy Walker's on the second unit. It's like, okay, if you have a brain, you recognize that Tracy Walker's going to play safety and he's going to play regularly, okay? And early on, what you're seeing is that, yeah, they want to see him with Will Harris. They want to see him with Deron Harmon. They want to see him in different situations. And yeah, you're not going to know exactly what situations he's going to be in because the Lions are top secret. It's basically, how the NFL now is locked down? Basically, the entire league is doing what the Lions are doing. You basically get 2 weeks of open training camp, and starting Monday, and I just sent the email. I said, look, I'm going to opt out because starting Monday, the only thing you can see in training camp is the stretching and the individual drills for 20 minutes. I said, that's nothing. That's nothing. And NFL teams have started to lock it down where you can't share video, you can't share this, you can't share that. So in essence, if you just pay attention to what you're seeing and observing, the Lions are moving people in all different directions. They want one player to be able to play at two, three different spots just in case the situation arises. So a guy like Jelani Tavai is playing, in the middle, playing on the edge, playing at the different positions just to get a sense of what he can learn. And yeah, at different spots, hopefully Matt Patricia discovers who is best where. But I think people get really riled up when they see, oh my gosh, Jeff Okudah's in the second position. It's like, yeah, you want to see him start, and it's very important. But finally, on Wednesday, Okudah did work with Trufant in that first team secondary, and they got some work in. But it was a rainy day, so it was really sloppy all the way around. So you look at it and you say, just relax on the rotations. Yes, depth charts are important, but I think the time to pay attention fully to those depth charts is probably after the first wave of cuts. You get down a little bit from 80 down to whenever they get down to the 53 and you start seeing, okay, who's going to play where, then you can start reacting. But it's good. I'm happy that people are into it. They're paying attention, and they're really into training camp. I loved it. I love the readership and the engagement. I think that it's good. It's good for us to talk football. I've been impressed with Tracy Walker, TJ Hawkinson, Stafford. DeAndre Swift has looked decent. You're not hearing a ton about Kerryon. I think he's trying to lay low under the radar. He's just going about his business. You're not hearing, too much about people struggling other than potentially some of the back end of the team like Will Harris, in the secondary. He's struggling a little bit with inconsistency. Hunter Bryant, that injury, I think, was the most concerning in that you recognize this is a guy that could make the tight end unit and make it stronger. But at least you're seeing plays being made, and you're hearing about, like you always do, the offense probably is going to be the strength of the team, looks solid, has the opportunity to make some noise. But I just think that some of the stories that are like off the beaten path are some of the more interesting ones, because no fans the first two games. I think it's a blessing. Maybe God is shining a little bit of a light on Lions fans. Say, look, just take a break from your team for just 2 weeks of the regular season. Watch at home. Send out just a couple of the media. And, we don't need to see suffering. Just go out there. I'm curious to hear. I hope that I'll figure out in a week or two how the media will watch games, because if we get a chance to go down lower, I don't know, maybe if they let us, but I doubt it. I think they're still going to be in the press box. But I'm curious how defenses can react to hearing all the calls, because basically you're going to hear everything. The defenses can hear Stafford check. They can hear things. Same with the Lions defense. I think games with no fans, and I think the entire NFC North for the first 2 weeks are not playing with fans. I want to see what that looks like, and I want to see how the Lions defense adjusts, who has the advantage. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch NFL football, and maybe the broadcast will have the piped-in fans in some unique situations. I just want to see what it's like in person to be at an empty stadium and to watch NFL football. That's the thing that's piquing my mind. That's piquing my curiosity. What about for you? Anything that you've heard or read that's caught your attention?
I think like you said, it's going to be not having the fans or not having that crowd noise. So I'm not sure if teams are going to pump in crowd noise to try to alter that. But you're right, because it's going to be like a intense glorified scrimmage, right? Or at least that's what it's going to feel like, because they're going to be able to hear Matt Stafford check. They're going to be able to hear everything. I mean, what's going to be interesting is you might be able to hear him in the huddle calling the plays out to the guys. Like, hey, Z right, 57, X 42, halfback dive. You might know the play. And if you know the play call, and we've seen it before with the Detroit Lions where they're extremely predictable and most of the guys can hear things and pick things up and they know what's coming. How does that impact the game? How does that play out? So it's going to be interesting to kind of see this. And I think that's probably going to be the most interesting thing, at least for the first couple weeks. On top of that, how is the NFL going to justify or alter some teams being able to have fans in the stands and other teams like the Detroit Lions at least not being able to have fans for a certain amount of games? How is all of that going to play out? Because for the most part, you do want everything even across the board. And what happens is you have a team like, we're going to get our first football game on Thursday. What is it? September 10th, I think. And that game is going to have roughly 15 to 20% of the fans in the stands. So you're going to have anywhere from 5,000 to 8,000 fans. And you look at Detroit, their first week, they're not going to be able to have anybody. So how does the NFL justify this, and how do they rectify this? I think that's going to be something interesting to watch as the season gets underway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that in regards to contracts, still no word on Kenny Galladay. He hasn't been signed yet. It's going to be interesting to see if it happens before the season starts. Taylor Decker, I would bank on him playing the season without a new contract. The other name that has caught you and I's attention is Marvin Jones. In his fifth year, has been highly productive, well-liked, well-respected, but it has the feel of a guy that's kind of about to get the New England Patriots treatment where, thanks for the 5 years, we're going younger. We got Cephas. Word is, and observations are, the dude is absolutely crushing it, and balls are just finding his hands like Anquan Bolden. And early on, for those of you that don't know or haven't read, Darrell Bevell has a connection because he played quarterback for Wisconsin, and his former teammate, an offensive lineman, is now the offensive coordinator at Wisconsin. And so Bevell got the word that, hey, we got this wide receiver in Cephas, and he put in the recommendation for the Lions to take him. And in the 5th round, it's decent value if he produces. And so early on, Cephas looks like a guy that can simply catch the football, which would, based on his salary, he's not making $1 million for the first couple years of the deal. I think it's like $600,000, then $800,000, then $900. For the first 3-4 years, the dude will be relatively cheap in terms of the cap. So I'm feeling like Marvin Jones is going to be, unfortunately, a cap casualty because you got to pay Kenny Galladay. And if you're going to go from $2 million for Galladay up to $16 million, somebody's going to take the fall. And I think all the way around, though, the way that Marvin Jones projects himself and the way that he acts, I think he's so professional that he'll just accept it, he'll move on, and that'll be that. But should the Lions move on? Should they? I mean, the smart, wise move would be to say, okay, maybe after 6 games, they did it with Diggs, they did it with Golden Tate. I'm thinking maybe if it's a 2-2 start, 2-3, not looking rough, if Quinn has confidence that he's going to be back in a Corona-free year, and he's like, look, this is a free year, I could see them, making a move, 3rd, 4th round pick, maybe even for a 5th, letting go and parting ways with Marvin Jones in the middle of the season.
I mean, I think that's probably the more realistic thing to take place is them trading him and trying to get something back in a form of value. But here's the thing, and I'm going to make the argument that I wouldn't necessarily have a problem if they brought him back. So I do.
Too old, man. Too old.
Wait, hold on. So I do the throwback with B, where we go back and we watch old Lion seasons. And I'm going to tell you something that has come up time and time again. And look, the reason we look at history is so we don't repeat it, right? So something with those old Detroit Lions teams that were very, very good, at least defensively, they were awesome. Offensively, they had some talent, but they had zero depth as far as playmakers go. Marvin Jones is a playmaker, okay? He's got a pretty affordable salary at just under $10 million, so like $9.1 million. I think you could work out some type of extension with Marvin Jones. You do like a 2-year extension with the guy. So he'll be 31 by the time it's all said and done. Roughly pay him $11, maybe $12 million. And what you do is you basically are stocking up your receiving core because whether I want it or not, Matt Stafford is not going anywhere, okay? And you're going to have to pay Kenny Galladay. And obviously, he is your future, and he is the stud that you're going to build around. Well, don't be like Martin Mayhew and build around a guy like Calvin Johnson and then not put any other pieces around him. Danny Amendola has a contract for like $5 million. It's absolutely ridiculous. You could have a guy like Kenny Galladay. You could have Quintez Cephas, who I really liked coming out of college. I liked him. I thought that was a really smart draft pick. You could have a guy like Quintez Cephas, and you could have a guy like Marvin Jones, and then you could sit there and add a couple other pieces to help fill out the depth at that position. And look, $12 million for a wide receiver who is explosive and can catch the football for you isn't too bad. You know what I'm saying? Hey, look, Kenny Galladay is going to probably cost you a fortune. Look, market value for Marvin Jones. I'm looking on Spot Rack right now. Marvin Jones' calculated market value is $9.6 million. You mean to tell me you wouldn't bring Marvin Jones back at $20 million for 2 years?
See, I think it's next man up. I think that
it's guaranteed production, though.
I know that's the thing that is so tough is that we first have to wait and see what he does this year because he also last year did get hurt and he had a productive year. But as you get older, you start breaking down. And look, Bob Quinn is no stranger to making these tough moves. I think a trade, if he's productive, might be in the cards, might be in the works because you then get another draft pick where you can. And in this year's draft, there's some good wide receivers. There's some nice talent that could be available as well. And then we got to see, because you got to look too. If Amendola is going to be gone as well, you now have somebody in Cephas that steps in. You probably got to draft another one in terms of keeping it affordable. You want to see maybe some of those touches go to TJ Hawkinson. Unfortunately, you just can't pay everybody. And cuz that defense needs a little bit more love, a little bit more sprinkling on the secondary, a little bit more in that defensive line. I know they made a signing, but that's not going to be.
Well, wait, don't we have a rocket scientist who's also our head coach, who's also a defensive guy, who is probably actually the defensive coordinator, no matter what they tell you? Don't we have that?
But
why has the defense been piss poor for the last 2 years? The defense is the thing that shoots us in the foot.
Well, I'll tell you why.
Why?
The reason is the ingredients just weren't to the liking. Maybe just a little bit too salty with the Slays of the world and the Diggs. And he's like, oh, no, I don't want no spice in my chili. And I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get my plain Jane chili. And that's what Matt Patricia likes. I know that he appears like he likes every kind of chili with every kind of flavor, with every kind of condiment. But no. Matt Patricia likes it plain Jane. He likes the okay guys. He likes the guys that will tell him, Coach P, I love you. He likes the guys that go up to the podium like Reggie Ragland and is like, this team has the traits of the Chiefs. I think we got some things going on. They want guys like that. They want guys that...
Somebody who's going to blow smoke up his ass.
Exactly. He's going to be like, oh, man.
Tickle my balls and blow smoke in my beehole. Come on. Make me feel good about myself.
He's going to be like, Coach, maybe like a Cuda right now. Oh, Matt, you want me to cover for 12 seconds? You got it. No problem. I can do it. We don't need any pressure. We don't need any pressure, Coach. I'm the guy that's going to get you 14 seconds of coverage. Anything you need. We don't even need to disguise any coverage. When that wide receiver runs across, I'm running with him. When that wide receiver stays, I'm staying with him. You mean you don't need any kind of, you don't want to do any kind of disguising? No way, Coach, whatever you believe. If you believe it's going to be man-to-man for 80% of the plays, I agree. I think this defense with no pressure, and I think you should rush 2 and drop back 9. This defense will show you what's up.
Rush 2 and drop 9. We're playing strictly prevent.
Exactly.
Everybody back. It's like a game of 500.
Exactly.
And everybody's dropping back to catch the football.
So that's what they're looking for. They're looking for now. They got those guys. So now you better teach them up. Now it's on you. Because first year, all right, it's inexperience. You get the pass. Second year, you lose Stafford. You get the pass. In essence, Matt Patricia might be the luckiest dog out there. Third year, you might get the coronavirus pass. He probably earned himself $5 million more because of coronavirus. And all you need is 7 wins to appease these fans. You got these fans that are like, we're winning the division. You got a lot of fans that are really buying into the Kool-Aid a little bit. But luckily, there's a little bit more now of some rational fans as well. But I think that, Reggie Ragland and his point was true in that they do got guys that have talent and can make explosive plays. I can see the similarities there. But across the board, the thing that you don't see is you don't see the big-time athletes that can make, across the board, big-time plays. You're hoping it's Jelani Tavai. You're hoping it's Jared Davis. You're hoping it's Trufant and Okudah. But you're a couple hamstring tears away from, if Justin Coleman goes down and Okudah maybe gets banged up, you're looking at a defense that's going to get their asses handed to them a little bit more than we would like. So pump the brakes, and be happy with 6 or 7 wins.
I think what you just said is why Reggie Ragland is out of his mind with his comment about them looking like the Chiefs.
Not enough depth.
You don't have the depth and you don't have the playmakers. Who's your Tyreek Hill? Who's your Patrick Mahomes?
Amendola, baby.
Who's your next man up? Just insert him running back.
All right.
Who is that? Who are your defensive studs?
Now on paper,
who do you have?
See, on paper, you would hope it would be a Ty Johnson. You would hope it would be a Huntley. But, when we say it, you and I are both sitting here in our chairs dying laughing because if Danny Amendola goes down, do you think Marvin Hall can step up and stay healthy for the entire year? I mean, he makes big catches, then he goes down with an injury. That's the thing is that collectively, the Lions were decent the first 8 games last year, but then they succumbed to injury. And that's the part that you're scared of now is that can Bob Quinn find more diamonds in the rough? Is Jalen Reeves-Maybin that guy? Is Christian Jones that guy? That's why this team is really intriguing this year. That's why I love being so invested in them because on paper, if the puzzle kind of fits, there's a chance for success. But it's like really a house of cards. And with one little blow that goes in the wrong direction, it's going to collapse.
And that's the problem.
And that's
it's
the problem.
House of cards.
House of cards. That's the name of the game. Let's be realistic here. Stafford tweaks a little bit of a back injury, or if Jonah Jackson makes one rookie mistake and a defender blows through there, and Stafford gets up a little gimpy. Chase Daniel's not getting you any W's. And one last thing here, because I know you saw it, and I know we're riling it up a little bit. It's only one practice, but everybody in Detroit saw it because those tweets come through, and it was nice hyperbole by this reporter. He said, and I quote, Tua looking good in week 2 looks totally different. Zipping the ball, accuracy, looks like a totally different quarterback. And all of Detroit was like, oh, hell no. And so we're going to monitor it. Don't freak out at Detroit Podcast. I know we got some hate from those that are like, a guy can have one good practice and Stafford's had 12 mediocre years. But look at it like this. We have to now put Tua in the alert that he can't ball. Anybody else in the NFL that's a rookie, I don't care about if it's after Okudah and it's somebody else that plays well in the secondary, if it's Simmons, and if it's this or that. I don't care about Derek Brown. If Tua takes the Miami Dolphins to the playoffs and has success in year 1, that might be it, man. That might be the thing that just breaks the spirit of hope with the Detroit Lions, because you were right there. You were one phone call away from taking Tua. And if it's the loyalty that ownership showed to Matthew Stafford that prevents us from getting the left-handed quarterback god, it's a wrap, bro. It's a wrap. I don't think it would be something I could come back from. That would be it. I'd be like, oh, look, we could have had Tua. We could have had him.
You already know how I feel on this. Like, that was the guy who I wanted. That was the guy who I was hoping the Lions would do something for, because in my tweet that I sent you, that I responded to what you posted, good teams do not have franchise cornerbacks. They just don't. Good teams don't. Good teams have franchise quarterbacks, but they do not have franchise cornerbacks. And Detroit invested a 3rd overall pick, which, if things go right, and that's what you're planning, if you're an organization, if you're a general manager or you're a head coach, you are hoping that you are never drafting at 3 again. Because if you are, things have gone horribly awry, and you've done a very bad job preparing this team to win games. So when you have the opportunity, or you have the real estate to draft somebody at 3, and you're looking at a possible franchise quarterback, I say possible, I believe Tua is going to light the world on fire. You have a guy like Tua at 3, and you pass on him to draft a cornerback who looks like he is a little bit more quiet and projects to be basically the same as your Pro Bowl talent cornerback who just talks a little bit too much shit for you. I think it's a bad move from your GM and from your head coach, man.
Yeah, it is.
It's look, for forever and a day, Jeff Okudah, however long his career goes, and Tua Tagovailoa, if you are a Detroit fan, they will be interlocked forever. You will compare what they do and how they help their teams until the day they retire, or until the wheels just fall off.
Let's see what happens. We're inching ever so close. September 13th, Bears. I just hope that they make it. The NFL, I'm liking that they're, I know it sounds unusual that I like snafus, but they're getting them out of the way early. A lab in New Jersey, messed up and pumped out 77 false positives. Lions were on that list, and luckily it didn't really impact things too much. So get the snafus out of the way, figure it out, get this test locked down, and let's figure it out, because, like we said, finishing this season is of the utmost importance for all involved. So I'm just hoping that, so far so good. Lots of tests have been run and nothing. Man, the corona list is pretty much dwindled down to nothing. So good on the players, man. I really thought that, to be honest, if you would have said what would have derailed the season, I would have said players hooking up with women. 100%. I would have said, oh man, there's what 50 players, 80 players on 30 teams, 3,000 players. Oh, good. 12 of them will hook up with somebody and spread it all over the place. But no, they've done a good job. There's only been one rookie from Seattle that made the boneheaded move to try to sneak in his girlfriend or a lady the other night to try and hook up, which was crazy, but he got himself cut, which is good. Quick, swift punishment, handed out, and the players have taken it seriously. And I could see why. When big money is involved, if you said, look, you're getting $4 million, just don't mess up, don't get the Rona, I think they took it seriously. And, these facilities are like rock solid. There's nothing that can penetrate at least the practice facility, because everyone's getting tested, everyone's getting figured out to make sure that at least the practice facilities are safe. And so far, 2 or 3 weeks in, workouts and 2 weeks of practices, so far so good. You're not getting too many reports of the coronavirus, which is good. Just one item of note to pay attention to. Dan Snyder, the owner of the Washington football team, is acting a fool or has acted a fool or is the victim of some serious allegations. And he's hired an attorney, but go check it out. I don't know. In the culture that we live in, the reports that came out, 25 women said this about the culture, and now several more have said that he's kind of, acted inappropriately and abused his power. Google Dan Snyder, read up on whatever the hell's going on with him, and figure it out, because I don't know. I think his time as owner steadily dwindling down because of his actions. It's 2020, and those kind of reports aren't looking good in any way, shape, or form. A wild ass owner, and I don't know how he's made it this far. It's the reports are wild, so pay attention to that. Any other significant league news? I've been mildly disappointed, a little bit boring because it's Corona heavy on Hard Knocks. I'll give more of a report next time. I even forget Tuesday's Hard Knocks night used to be must see. Rams and Chargers. I'll peek more into it, give more of an in-depth report, but it's not doing it for me. Not keeping the DOC's attention.
Do you think, real quick, do you think that the NFL will force Dan Snyder to sell his portion of the Washington football team because they don't have a real name anymore, similar to what the NBA did with Donald Sterling?
Well, right now we're in the allegation phase, and so the attorneys are getting involved. So we shall see. I don't think he's going to go away quietly. So we shall see how this plays out. But I think they're going to try. I think it's now a couple of big investigations against the man. So in this day and age, they needed to be a little bit more squeaky clean. And Dan Snyder, he ain't squeaky clean. At least, you know what? Whether you believe the allegations or not against him personally, if you have people in an organization acting that way and you don't know about it or you don't have the proper channels to figure it out, then you're guilty by association. You can't have that in an organization. You're at the end of the day, you're in charge, so you can't have that. So we'll see what happens as this goes forward. A crazy story. The NFL does not need that kind of PR. Absolutely not. No way. Dan, got to clean that up big time. Make sure you follow Daddy Rich Bucks, Adam Strozinski, at Adam R. STROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Look, man, it's nice. I know we're in a culture that don't appreciate the wealthy. You've come into a large sum of money, and it's okay. It's great. It's you don't have to act like this is coming to America. You don't have to be, you don't have to act like Akeem and just be the, the poor worker there. You acknowledge it's good. You came into a boatload of cash, and you're about to figure out a way to spread it. And we'll help you out along the way here on the network.
I appreciate you. Thanks.
I think, you know what? I think it's time now to, morph you into kind of that Daddy Rich Bucks like Chuck Daly. Put on a nice suit and show up and just style everywhere you go and just rock it. Be like, dude, Look, if you spend a couple grand on some golf clubs, a couple hundred on some nice suits, tailored, oh, man, you want that guy to kind of just make some adjustments, boom, boom, take care of business and, look, style and profile like Ric Flair. You got that in you.
Right.
Styling and profiling Adam the Jock Strozinski, premier member, awesome member of the Detroit Sports Podcast. See everybody next week.